I bite, yes.
You even told me one time that you had your tongue peel and fall out into your hand.
Yeah, these are some side effects. I had an emergency flight to India because I had become blind. So when I picked up the results, I realized that it's acute leukemia.
Pastor Dorothy, thank you so much for joining me today. You have a powerful testimony to share with us about how you overcame cancer and you went on to even write a book. So I want you to take us back to when you initially found out that you were diagnosed with leukemia.
Yeah. Thank you, Mercy. I'm Dorothy Mulei. I'm a pastor and also a tutor. I train pastors to go and preach the gospel since 90s in Ukamba Bible College. I'm married to Reverend Jeremiah Mwoki. Reverend Jeremiah Mwoki is a senior pastor at ICU Moja in Nairobi, Eastlands. I'm blessed with 3 children, Ruth, Beth, and Mo, and recently a grandchild, a granddaughter who is 8 months. Saved and called of the Lord to serve him. And so in 2016 in August, after I just finished my courses, I had an heaviness in my head and a weakness that I couldn't understand. And so I went to Gijabe Hospital, and then they told me that my blood counts were down at 6.5. They told me that there must be something that is eating up the blood. And so they referred me to Lancet Limited here in Nairobi to be extracted bone marrow. It's called a biopsy. And so they told me to come after 7 days to pick up the results. So when I picked up the results, I realized that it's acute leukemia. And so I couldn't differentiate between acute leukemia and single cell. And so I Googled and I realized this is a real beast. And so I told my husband, before we go to the hospital, let's consult with my sister, little sister. She was staying in Kenyatta National Hospital. She works there. Because I told her the beast in here cannot be handled without consultation. And so we consulted with my sister. And then also Dr. Catherine Nyongesa. She's a proprietor of Texas Cancer Center. And so I was admitted in Texas Cancer Center for the transfusion because the blood count was down. 2 weeks I was admitted. Now the drama and the worry was, how would the children be told that their mother has cancer? But I thank God for my husband, because one by one he picked them from school and told them Mama has cancer and she will be well. But I think somebody just slipped somewhere and told my children that mama yenu ako na ugonjwa mbaya sana na atakufa. So all through, especially the boy, the small boy, Mo, every time as I took him to school, he'd look straight into my eyes and ask me, Mommy, will you come for the visiting? And I straight away knew that this boy, in between the line, is asking, will you be alive to come for my visiting? I thank God because they have come out of the trauma, because over the years I've been well, I've been picking up well. And so in the last 3 years, 2-3 years, he has not been asking me those tough questions, because I've really improved. Because a mother who is sick affects other children.
Yes.
And the family is also affected.
Yes.
If a person is sick. And so I thank God that they have grown out of their trauma and they are picking up well.
Yeah, when a mother or like a parent or a family member goes through a sickness, it definitely changes that dynamic. The dynamic, it changes it. So for your son, when she said that her son asked if he'll be able to come to visit her, that's a term that's used for kids who are mostly in boarding schools here in Kenya. So it sounds like he was there, correct? So I think it's really cool that over the years your son is like developing more hope. He's like seeing mom's getting better. Yeah, but what I really is tough to hear is how someone else who you did not give permission to came in and told the children what you were suffering. It's always easier to be the one to decide when and where they learn. So how did you take that?
You see, the father was there assuring them that mommy will be well, but they sank into depression, and they were always waiting for that time to reach. And so I knew that this boy is waiting for bad news. But we continued encouraging them, and the teachers were very cooperative. The teachers, because Beth was in Nyayo Girls, Mungwa was in Koto, and we told the teachers, and they will give the report. Every time we go to India, they will give them report. And so at least the teachers cooperated so well.
That's so
with
nice.
The children, and they took charge of that. And so at least the journey became well. So then after that, after the 2 weeks, Dr. Nyongeza referred us to a hematologist. And a hematologist is a doctor that deals with blood cancer. And so the doctor told us that in Kenya, they don't manage, they only treat partially. And so if we want to have complete treatment, we can possibly pick on South Africa or India, and we will need a 2.5 million. The first shock was the cancer. The second was
the cost,
the money. 2.5 million.
Where are you
and
gonna
I'd
get
never
that?
even tried to collect 1 million in my own account. I said it's gone. And that was really tough. But I thank God for the family members and said that if I'm not treated in the next 3 months, I'll be normal, because acute leukemia is acute as its name. But then family members and the leaders in AICU Moja, the women and the men leaders in AICU Moja, said that they will stand in the gap with the family, and they chose India. Because it was slightly cheaper. So on 31st August, my husband, my little sister called Hedith, and I booked a plane, Kenya Airways, to India. Mentanta Hospital. That was the hospital. And when we reached there, I told them I had a lot of anxiety. I couldn't sleep that night. So in the morning I told them, let's go and check where the hospital is. So when we went to check, they told me, no, Dorothy, you're not going back. It's an emergency. You have to be admitted immediately. Because it was that tough. And so my husband was given about 500,000 so that they may kick off with their treatment, because we had nothing to at least help us go on with the journey. So treatment now started. 1st September, August, they put me on chemo. It's called induction. 7 days chemotherapy. It was a small bottle. Chemotherapy for 7 days, and then after that they burn a bone marrow extract to still confirm whether the acute leukemia is there. I developed some few complications. I was admitted for about a month. My husband had to go back to Kenya with my sister to raise funds, and then so my mother came to be my caregiver in India. And then September, October, I was in India with my mother, and then the treatment took almost over 6 million.
Wow.
In October, it was a 6 million. And then they called me with my mother and told me, Dorothy, you'll not be able to go back home because the cancer has gone to a bad stage. And possibly if you go back to Kenya, it might reset. So you need to be done a bone marrow transplant.
Oh God.
I looked at mommy. I told mommy, please, mommy, I don't think we'll make it. If we have been struggled in this hospital, and at one point we finished, I was discharged, there was no money, we were locked in a hospital for 2 weeks in a foreign land. That was really
Hard.
And I told my mother, I don't think we'll have to raise the funds. Mommy, let's go back to Kenya.
Wow.
Peleka nyumbani nikakufa. I told her exactly those words. Because I don't think whether we'll be able to raise that amount. 3.5 million is for staff. But then I thank God because at least when we are trying to struggle to raise the funds, during the last week so that I may be able to come back to Kenya, in October, my husband tried to raise funds at home in Ngoleni because we come from Kathiani. They raised about 800. What is 800 compared to a 3.5 million?
Yeah.
It was tough. But then, now the next option was the money, and secondly, I needed a donor to donate the cells, the bone marrow cells, to me. So 2 sisters and 2 brothers here in Kenya went through tests, and then one of my sister came, called Jackie, came 10 over 10. A perfect match. And so that money, little money, my husband gave her, paid her the flight, and came to India. And so I would ask my husband, please, you have sent the donor to India, and the 3.5 million is not there. What do you expect me to do? Then he told me, please relax. Relax. And be sober. God will provide in His own way. Deep inside, I was so scared, but I knew that then something will happen. So during this last week, I think it was on a Thursday. It was to be done. They came on a Saturday, and I fly back to Kenya. When we were in Scott College, he was sent to Gelani Secondary School, in a high school for devotions. So he met a boy in second year, in Form 2. And so he discipled him, he preached to him, and then we met the same man now in Umoja, married as a family man. And then he called my pastor, have you got the money? And he said, no, I've not got the money. Then he told him, today, come home to my place. So when he went home, he told them, tomorrow, I'll deposit 3.5 million in your account. You go to India, you save the life of Mama Ruth, and I'm sure Mama Ruth will come back to Kenya alive and give the testimony of God's doing. And exactly that next morning, the 3.5 million was in the account. And at 4 in the evening, he was in a plane back going to India to come and save my life.
That's what I call a miracle. When you get an answer to your prayer, you've been waiting for so long, just raising these funds. That is what I call a miracle.
A miracle. They are God-sent angels.
Yeah, and I would say there's 2 miracles there because you found a perfect match in your own sister.
Yes.
And that's like hardly the case, right? And then you've already got all your funds met. Your needs met for that time.
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Then now my sister was put on her own room, isolation room, to be extracted the bone marrow cells.
Yeah.
And I was put in another isolation room to wait because the bone marrow is put life.
Okay.
And to be put on a bone marrow transplant is 50-50. I signed 38 consequences, and the 38th consequence was death. I signed, my husband signed, and at my 40s, the doctors assured me it's not easy, but we trusted the Lord. I put on the signature and told Lord, God, have mercy. And so I was putting the bone marrow cells for my sister. And so as I speak to you now, the bone marrow cells are at 96%. So that means that the bone marrows, the implant of my sister is working in my body.
It's working.
And I thank God. In 2016 December, that's when they put on in. And the 3.5 million was not even enough. He sent another million up to 6 million. Cancer treatment, and especially acute leukemia with the bone marrow transplant, is expensive. But we thank God because of the social support system of people that have stood with us. You see, cancer, chemotherapy, this medicine that is used to kill cancer, is really has some side effects. Because like for me, in the first 3 weeks of the chemotherapy, the hair cut off completely.
Wow.
And sometimes when something that you love and you see it fading off, sometimes you feel down. But you see, the doctor had prepared us, had prepared me for that. This skin has peeled off 4 times. 4 times. I'm not the way I used to be. It has, and at one point I became very dark, very dark, and I had some few wounds, some sores in my mouth, nausea sometimes because of the chemotherapy. I reduced up to 40 kilos, the side effects of the bone marrow and also the chemotherapy. But you see, you'd rather the side effects and the cancer is off. So you have to measure up. The treatment is cruel, but you have to take the risk of the side effects because you're sure that you have another day to live. And that's what you have to have in mind. And after the bone marrow transplant, we've been going to India so many times. Like from 2017, from 2016, after the bone marrow, we were going up after every 3 months.
You're traveling back there?
Travel back to India for checkups, for the management of the bone marrow transplant. And almost 7 times. 2 years ago, I was back in India. I think 3 years ago, when we had COVID, I had an emergency flight to India because I had become blind. Partially blind. Tried to handle here in Kenya, but because of the pre-existing condition, I had to be managed in the place that I was put the implant. And so I was operated on the 2 eyes, and as I speak to you now, I can now see.
You can now see.
I always say that God, I have 2 miracles that God has given me. My cancer is on remission, and I can now see.
You can now see.
It's such a miracle.
Goodness, it just sounds like all these symptoms, side effects that you're facing are so troublesome, they're so challenging, but here you are overcoming them. I mean, your skin is peeling, you're losing your hair, and to a woman that means like a lot. Your appearance, you know, it means a lot, especially to a woman. And it's such a hard thing for you to have endured, but it's wonderful to see how you've come out on the other side. But now to go partially blind, that is a difficulty I did not imagine you could face, that comes hand in hand with what you were dealing with your leukemia. So I want you to tell me, how was it navigating? One day you could see clearly, and the next moment it's hard for you to see. How did you manage that?
Partial blindness is tough because I had to be managed by my children and my husband. They hold me, I didn't tell my students that I can't see them, but I only had to see the ones that are in the front seats. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine teaching a class
and you can't see the back
and you can't see
what the kids are doing?
So when I went back to India, they were in third year. Mm-hmm. I started to have complication in first year. Mm-hmm. When we were in first year, in fourth year, I met different people. Mm-hmm. I was teaching people that I don't know.
Yeah.
Then I told them, then I can now see. Then I told them, I can now see you. So I think sight is very important, and I thank God that God enabled me to see.
Yes.
And so we've been going for checkup in India. Mm-hmm. But in 2018, it was the worst. Because when we went there, I had swollen the whole body. Mm-hmm. I had closed. I could not take anything for almost about 3 months, and I was very down. And we tried to raise funds, this sort of stuff. And then when we went back to India, 5 oncologists came in my room bed and told me, Dorothy, we've treated me for some few years, and according to the checkups that we've done, I think we've reached the end, and there's not much we can do for you. And I knew they were preparing me for my exit. And they had to say that because according to the tests, there were some few organs in my body that were failing. The heart was beating down. I had some few problems with breathing. One of the kidney had some few infections. A liver had some issues. My lungs had a problem. I was swollen, something that it caused edema. My body was full of fluid, and I knew that I was not good. My husband had gone to prepare something in the guest house. Mm-hmm. And so then when he came, I told him, you know, my dear, I think I'm not doing good. And I've been prepared for my exit. Then he looked straight into my eyes and told me, Dorothy, that is the doctor's report, but I believe that God has the final say.
Amen.
And in the isolation room that I was admitted, he sang that song. Mm-hmm. Who has the final say? Jehovah has. And then he prayed. Mm-hmm. After he prayed, in the afternoon, Dr. Amrita came. You see, when in India, when a female, you are given a female doctor. Mm-hmm. And so Dr. Amrita told me, Dorothy, so that you may be able to go back to Kenya, I'll take you to theater twice. First, in the afternoon, I was taken to theater to be put a machine here. A pot, it's called a pot, because the veins had collapsed. For medication, for blood, transfusion, and food, because everything else had collapsed. Mm-hmm. That was successful. But in the evening, when I was preparing to get into the theater, the person that was before me died.
The patient died.
The patient died. And so I had to wait sometimes longer. Mm-hmm. To wait a bit. You see, in the morning I was prepared for my exit, and I knew I would not make it.
You were
in
hopeless.
A short notebook that I had,
yes.
I captured my eulogy and told me and I captured every name of my family members, and I told them, please, it is well with me.
You'd come to
I know
terms.
I will not make it. Please, bye for now. We'll meet.
So you're telling me that the patient before you, the day you were to go to theater, you heard the bad news that the patient never made it. And there you were.
I was outside the theater.
You were outside the theater.
And
you had written your eulogy because you'd come to terms with what the doctors had said about your fate. They told you
Yeah.
you've come,
And
you've reached the end.
And I said, if this didn't make it, I don't think I will make it.
Okay.
You see, what something that comes in your mind that if this person has not made it, I will not also make it. And so I wrote a eulogy. And I said, but then I thank God, because when I entered into the theater, they extracted 8 liters of water from my body.
From the edema.
Yeah, that's edema. And so they extracted fluid. And then I was taken back to the world. And I was somehow unconscious for some days.
Wow.
When I opened my eyes, I wrote my husband, please, dear, book the next flight next week. I don't want to come back to Kenya as a cargo. I want to go back to Kenya as I am, as weak as I am, see my children and die. Because I knew that it was not good for me. But God gave me the strength. In about a month, I was discharged and then came back to Kenya. But in a week, the fluid recollected again, and I had shortness of breath. I could not breathe well.
So now you're back to square one.
I could hardly breathe.
Everything the doctors did.
I was admitted. I was on oxygen.
Yeah.
And so after they removed the fluid, could hardly breathe. I was on oxygen. And I remember in Texas Cancer Center praying for 3 times that God would bring out the thorn in the flesh for me. I'd given up. For 3 days. One day, the first time I prayed the first prayer, second prayer, the third day, the third prayer. Then I said out loud another day. Paul prayed 3 times. I said I prayed 4 times. And then I saw the light. I was still not dead. I wrote my doctor, please doctor, I need to go home. At that time I'm on oxygen.
Yeah.
Because I felt now I need a break. And then Dr. Nwangaza asked me, are you sure, Dorothy, you want to go home? I wrote her, yes. Let me be taken back home. In Nairobi. Back home with my oxygen. So my sister had to find a doctor and oxygen. I need something oxygen at home. I was on oxygen for about 4 months.
Wow.
At home, be managed by a nurse.
Okay.
And I thank God I came out of the oxygen.
Yes.
Strong. Went back teaching. And I thank God because I'm doing well.
Yes.
Yeah, and as I told you, there are some few side effects of cancer. And now what I'm battling with is I'm battling with something that is called graft versus host disease.
Okay.
Graft is the implant that was put. Host is the 4%. So the cells of the implant of my sister, 96, are fighting with the host 4%.
Okay.
And so sometimes I have low immunity.
Okay.
I'm prone to so many infections. At one point, I told you it struck the eyes. Last year from December, it has struck my teeth. And as I speak to you now, 6 of them got broken and the roots were inside. So slowly by slowly, I'm going through some few management of the teeth.
So you're saying that you have suffered some symptoms like blindness, and now as of last year you're losing your teeth.
I'm losing your teeth.
And how you're saying that's affecting like how you eat, how much you eat,
and the pain, and also the stigma of having these gaps. Because at one point I had to ask my husband, now, as a public speaker, as a teacher, how do I deal with these gaps? Because sometimes I don't even want to smile, but I'm put up with it. And then somebody said, another person said, Bora, why? The doctors told me it's a long procedure, but I told the doctors I'm ready to go through the procedure. So that at least I may be able to eat and also reduce the pain.
Yes.
And also because of the bone and implant that I was put, I take 10 tabs every morning. And my husband has to raise about 100,000 so that we may book some medication from India. And so it's been a long journey.
Yes.
For us, and very expensive, because I think the whole treatment is like we have captured over 20 million.
Wow.
At one point I saw my husband sell an investment of over 6 million, over 6 million, and some few other investments, and all those have gone into cancer.
So cancer has affected you financially?
Completely. Yeah, because you have to raise 100,000 every 3 months for the medication. From 2017, I have what we call a dry syndrome. I buy tears. These small bottles you can see. It's called artificial tears. One of it's about 13.50. I use about 1 or 2 every week. So apart from 100,000, I have to buy tears. You see, sometimes some people just shed tears.
Yes.
So you see, some these small things are like tears. Some people take for granted.
Yes.
But to have tears is grace.
Yes.
To have a smile, because now as I smile I have to be very sensitive, is also something that you need to thank God. These small things are very important in life. And you don't realize something until you've lost it. And I thank God because we've walked that journey, and as I speak to you now, my cancer is on remission.
That's great.
I'm just battling with some few infection. I've also have some few infection with my nerves. Sometimes I have some few infection in my nerves, but I'm battling hard. And I've decided to be open on cancer. Anytime I'm called to share my story, I've shared the story in the TV stations, radio stations. I want to give people hope. One, I want to create awareness. I don't want anymore to keep quiet on cancer. Because I believe that as people go for checkups and the cancer is diagnosed early, the treatment is cheaper and also it can be healed. And also, they need not to be scared of the checkups. Because to go through to treatment is expensive. Checkup is very cheap compared to treatment. So people should wake up and go for checkup and not fear. Because some people fear the checkups. Secondly, apart from the creatine, I want to reduce the stigma. The stigma of cancer is big. It's intense.
Yeah, tell me about the stigma that you faced with cancer.
You see, one of the stigmas of cancer is at one point when my husband was raising the 3.5 million, one relative called him and told him, please, don't raise up this amount. It's too big. And you are raising to treat a woman? Na akasema wanawake ni ng'ombe. Wachana na hii ng'ombe ikufe. Utatafuta ng'ombe ingine. Women are cows. It's just like a cow.
That is
Let this cow die.
So
you
hard to
just
hear.
pick on another. I mean, because you should not spend so much on a woman. Yeah, that was the first stigma. See, people that would have stood with him, they're telling him not to raise the funds. Cancer doesn't heal. You are wasting a lot of your resources on this woman. Let her die. But my husband's too strong. Another time, my mother-in-law passed on. And people just concluded it's Dorothy that has died. And in fact, in a forum that I was in, somebody was even need to ask, is it Dorothy Mulei who has died? And it was posted in Facebook, rest in peace, Mama Rose. And because they believe that the person that has cancer is a person that should be dead.
Yeah, they thought.
And that is the myth that people have in mind, and that has been put in people's mind, that if you have cancer,
it's a death
you are dying. In fact, some people don't even bother to go and take people to hospital.
Wow.
They are not even managed at home. They just wait for you to die, because it's that the myth that has been put in people's mind.
And you're here to change that stigma.
I want to change it and tell people that even one day for a cancer patient to live is a miracle.
Yes.
And so whether you just keep that person alive for a week is a big miracle for a survivor and a cancer patient to live. And cancer patient needs care and love. And so when you neglect, is a way of telling this person, we don't need you here. You become a buffer. And so that is what I want to reduce.
Yes.
And so I think with that, I think we can be able to manage it. To manage it.
Yes.
Because it's real tough. And so, you know, me, I'm a pastor. Yes, I'm saved. I train ministers of the word to go and preach the word. But sometimes it brings me down. Sometimes the stigma also brings me down. And if sometimes it brings me down, what of somebody that doesn't have a social support system?
Yes.
He can just lock himself or herself in a room and die.
Yes.
And I think that's why you see some get shocked and they pass on because of the stigma. And thirdly, I want to encourage people. It's called a social support system. Cancer patients, cancer survivors need a good support system.
Yes.
A person that will stand in the gap with you and tell you, I'm with you, I'm walking with you. A caregiver that is supportive and tells you, be strong for us. We can make it.
Did you have someone in your life like that?
Yeah, I think I'm alive because of the social support system that I have from my husband, who stood with me. At one point, he sought an investment of almost over 6 million. Wow. He has been working with me, taking me to all those visits in hospital in India for almost over 7 times. My children, they have walked the journey with me. My brothers and sisters, the church congregation in AIC Umoja, the Ukamba Bible College fraternity, and friends that every time I've stood, every time we have fund drives for the medication, people have stood tall and they have supported us.
That's
because
wonderful.
We need one another in this life.
Yes.
And you cannot do alone.
Yes.
And I think cancer patient needs people that have love and support and to move on with life, because I think I'm alive because of that support system. And I know that they accept me because, you know, either the skin becomes dark, you have lost weight for 40 kilos, who really accept you? You have lost self-image, you hate yourself, you don't love yourself, but you see some people telling you, we are with you. Wow. And you feel good and you move on with life. So social support system is very important in this life. And it's for cancer patients and also other caregivers.
Yes.
And fourthly, I think it's important to live positively.
Okay.
When you read in, I think in Philippians 4, and I think it's chapters 4 verse 8, 9. It says, thy final brothers, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, think about things. To think is to meditate, to think on the good, to have a positive attitude towards issues. You see, we have been created, every person thinks, I think 96% of us thinks negative. That is us. But we have to deliberately choose to think positively.
Yes.
And embrace positivity in life. And you believe that it can in Jesus' name. You can in Jesus' name.
Yes.
And when you, and Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ that enables me. I can in Jesus' name. And ninaweza. And so when you have a positive attitude and know that you'll be healed and you live positively and you know that you can make it, you move on.
Yes.
And you see, healing is not only medication. Healing is having a positive attitude, knowing that you can and you move on.
Yes.
And I think that fighting spirit and knowing that it is possible is what has given us men being alive. Because I've embraced positivity. And I have walked that journey with us, positivity, and the Lord has been with us.
I think it's wonderful, guys. I hope you're taking notes and tips, especially those of you who have people in your life who are facing cancer or a chronic illness, because what she said are like many points on how you can deal with a chronic illness. You can have a personal relationship with God, read the Bible, you'll get positive encouragement from it. And secondly, that support system that she talks about, your family, your friends. If you are a family member, a friend, you can be that positive voice, just like your husband was, to that person who's sick, and you can lift their spirits up, guys. So I like what you said there. And back to the stigma that you faced, I am in a complete shock that someone can compare a woman to an animal like a cow and say they're unworthy of treatment. They're unworthy financially of getting help. So I like that your husband was there to stand his ground and say, whether or not society deems a woman worthy of getting good health care, I say she is worthy of it. And he didn't change, and I love that. So now, guys, I want you to look at this woman before you, because in the midst of her struggles, she went on to start writing a book to help other people. So I want you to tell us how that came to mind.
I thought instead of just sharing either online with people, I need to write something to capture my story, my experience through pain, and God's perspective of sickness, a word to the caregivers and also to those that are struggling with cancer, and instill hope and tell them there's life after cancer. I'm trying to put up the book, and I think in few months it will be out. Because I want to tell this world that there's life after cancer. God heals cancer. God is the ultimate healer of our souls and bodies.
He's the great
and through
physician.
pains and struggles, you can still stand tall and strong, because God can give enough grace to move on with life.
Yes, he can.
Irrespective of healing in the flesh, you can still put a smile in this world and a smile in people's heart and tell them, please be strong and move on with life, because you can in Jesus' name. And that is my inspiration, and I know that in due time it will come out.
Yes. Do you want to share with us the title of your book?
This life, cancer is not a death sentence.
Cancer is not a death sentence by Dorothy Mulei. Guys, I want you to keep your eye out for that. Cancer is not a death sentence by Dorothy Mulei, because just as much tips as she shared today, guys, there's more that she's gonna put in her book for you to buy, so you know yourself how to care for a loved one or a friend who's going through it, or you can get it and give it to your loved ones who are facing this illness. So Pastor Dorothy, I want to thank you for coming onto my channel and sharing your touching story. It's going to be an encouragement to so many people. And what you did today was you shared the stuff most people wouldn't usually share.
Oh, sure.
Usually when you hear about a cancer patient, you see physically their hair loss. But for you, you went deeper. You told us, guys, there's more to it. Sometimes your skin can peel. Sometimes you can face unexpected problems like blindness. You even told me one time that you had your tongue peel and fall out into your hand.
Yeah, these are some side effects of the bone marrow transplant, and also the side effects of the chemotherapy. At one point, I coughed and it's like the tongue came out, the skin, the outer skin. And then I called my husband and told him it's like I'm bleeding. But I thank God that after a year, the skin came in.
It came back.
It came back.
It restored itself.
It was sores. There were some few sores. There are some side effects of the chemotherapy.
Wow.
But I thank God that I'm standing strong.
Yes.
And I think it's important for those who are going through the cancer patient to know that they are not alone.
Yes.
There are these side effects, and you'd rather the side effects than cancer bring you down.
Yes.
You just stand strong that you are just alive.
Yes.
And that's why I've started this mission.
Yes.
Going out where, creating awareness and giving back to the society. I want to share my life so that people would stand tall.
Pastor Dorothy, I think it's wonderful what you're doing. You're making a change. You're changing the stigma. You're making a movement here, and you're sharing things most people wouldn't dare share.
Sure.
And we are enlightened. We know like how people in your situation, people with cancer, what they're truly going through behind the scenes, and you're bringing it to the forefront, and you're making it known that, guys, it's worth the fight.
Sure.
And you can overcome it just as long as you stay strong. I want to thank you so much for coming on to my channel to share your encouraging story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm one-on-one with cancer patients, cancer caregivers. They can reach on me from 0710 617 283. They can pray with me, they support me either emotionally, financially, either this mission that I'm doing, also in my medical expenses, and I'll appreciate.
Guys,
And
just what
conquer
she said.
cancer.
Yes, guys, I believe you can conquer cancer. I'll be praying for you. And guys, just like she said, the number will be on the screen. You can contact her. You can meet her needs financially, because cancer, it definitely takes a toll on you financially. So please use the number on the screen to reach out, to meet her needs financially. Any amount would be appreciated. Go ahead and send her an encouraging message, guys, because you know how that's so important to our fellow brothers and sisters who are going through this. So Dorothy, thank you once again.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you, Mercy. Thank you for calling me. And thanks for the great job that you are doing. May God bless you.
Thank you.
May God expand your boundaries.
Thank you.
You are doing great. You are touching lives. And I know that God is going also to touch your life and expand this mission and ministry that you have.
Thank you so
May
much.
God bless you and be with you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And guys, keep an eye out for her new book. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.